Hey everybody, glad you're here. I'm so excited to talk about this topic of research because I know I have struggled with learning some of these techniques. I've struggled with teaching how to do research, and I've actually struggled with doing my own research. So I hope that these techniques that we learn today, you might be able to use for yourself and also especially for your students. So let's go ahead and get started. So this training is called Research Writing Techniques. It is all through my own challenges and risks that I've learned these techniques that actually work for many students. So currently, I teach seniors, but I've taught these techniques to quite a few different populations. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I have been a classroom teacher for about 15 years. I've taught regular education students, DE, ESL, and alternatives uh, at alternative schools. So I've used a lot of these techniques in all of my different classes in different forms, of course, and I imagine you will too. But I just wanted you to know that they are able to be adapted and used in almost any population. So I have my master's in education for professional and technical writing at NAU. I have my master's in TESOL at Alliant University in Poway, California. Got my credential in California and I taught there for many years. And I have two daughters and a stepdaughter. You can see in this photo, this was just taken a few weeks ago during spring break. We went to the National Mall in DC with me and my husband, my three daughters, and my brother on the other side. So, so how we will spend our time today, I'm going to talk about the challenges of teaching research, which shouldn't be any surprise to you, how these techniques can help, two strategies that you can try immediately, and then the research process that I take my students through uh, for a longer project, and some suggested research topics and resources. So I love this quote. Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. The whole goal isn't just research for research's sake, but research to teach students how to be curious and find out the answers to their questions. If we can get them to follow a train of thought and some questions to find out the answers in a more credible way, then we've done our job, right? So, as you know, you probably have experienced many of these things already with teaching to write research papers. There's definitely a difference between assigning writing versus teaching writing. So, we can definitely tell, okay, write a research paper, and then many times we can see the defeated look on their faces and frustration because students really don't know how to do the research. I know that I have experienced that same problem in college and in high school. So I'm going to hopefully teach you some strategies on how to walk students through these processes. Another problem is boring topics. You know, if we just hand out a bunch of topics, which sometimes I do, and I'll share with you those particular instances, but if we let them follow their own interests, we generally get a better response from them. Um, Students simply rewrite what they find. You know, they read one sentence and mix around the sentence and put it on their paper and say that it was theirs. And then also that dependence on AI. And of course, we all have experienced this. And hopefully, some of these techniques will help to alleviate some of those problems. Students may have a little prior knowledge on some of the topics. So I'm going to give you some strategies on whether they know some information about the topic or they don't know. So they're not always going to choose only what they want and they know a little bit about. Sometimes we're going to have them research topics they know very little about. And then again, like as I mentioned, just that need to switch around sentences or finally depend on plagiarism or getting other people's ideas, not being able to go through that process by themselves or with some guidance and find out something that they find interesting that they can, seek out answers for. And then, of course, we know that they end up procrastinating and wasting time. And so I'm going to give you some techniques on how I try to manage that. And then that citation and formatting, which we won't do too much on, but I will give you some resources on how to teach annotated bibliographies and to find credible, to help them to find credible sources. So these are the possible solutions that I'm offering here. We're not just telling them to do research for research sake, as mentioned, but we're trying to inspire them to be interested in the whole research process. We're letting them choose, for the most part, at least to warm up. And then I'm going to give you some teaching strategies. Uh, I'm going to give you a few things that you can actually try right away. And then I'll teach you the 10 to 1 approach that I use in class. And more than anything, I just encourage you to write in front of your students, model your thinking, write, show that it's challenging even for you, and teach them ways that you overcome some of those challenges. Out of all the things that I do in teaching writing, modeling always is the biggest hit for them because they love to see me fail. And they see that it's actually achievable because it doesn't always come out perfectly out of my mind either. So, writing is a process and we're all growing. And I just encourage you to do that in front of them. So, this is our first lesson, and I'm going to call it Finding My Focus. Uh, so, basically, if you'd like to try this out, what I'd like you to do is pause the video at this slide after I give you instructions. So we have a mural here. I'd love for you to take a few minutes and look at the details in the mural. Zoom in if you can, really look at the details, take it all in. And all you're doing is on a lined piece of paper, you're going to write 10 details that either you find interesting, you find that is the most important, or maybe some elements that you think other people won't notice. And so, like I said, if you can do that, pause the video and go ahead and just pick out 10 things. All right, so the next step after, you give students a chance to identify their 10 things. I'm okay if they only have 7. It's not that big of a deal. They're just exploring here. Um, so they're going to review their list. So tell them, review your list. And then I want you to circle 3 observations that you find that are most impactful to the meaning of the entire mural, have the most impact apart from the whole, or mean something to you individually. And then jot some notes down next to it. So out of those 3 elements that you find most important, what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of them to focus on. And you're going to write a paragraph. It can be an informal paragraph. It's just whatever you're thinking about why you've chosen that one element. You can explain what you see, what you feel that it means, what it means to others, what it means to the overall message, or even what it means to you. And any other thoughts that you have about it, try to get about 4 to 5 sentences if you can in response to this. So at this point, you can ask them to write their paragraph on the other 3 elements. So I'll explain to you in a minute exactly what you might find and why this is important to the research process. So, what could happen after they write their 3 paragraphs is that you can get them to see that they've just written 3 body paragraphs of an informal five paragraph response. You could show them how to write an intro and a conclusion and put it together a little bit more formally. What happens is that you'll see that uh, a claim or a theme might reveal itself to the students, and that they might start to realize that their interpretation of the mural is different than others. And that is actually exactly what you're wanting to happen. So it's in, this lesson is intended to inspire observation as opposed to feeling like there's only one answer. And that is definitely a good strategy to begin with in research, is not feeling like they're looking for the answer, that's there's only one answer, but that they're exploring possible answers. Um, this may lead to them making claims about the mural. It may lead to other discussions, disagreements on what it means and what the objects or the symbolism means. Um, and students may find that the things are that they notice are based on their interests, background knowledge, culture, and more. And this may lead into more discussion. It can also be used as an introduction to a larger unit. Um, so again, they will find that there is not one good answer, one perfect answer. All of their interpretations are valid and accurate. It is also intended to inspire intrigue. You know, ask them, what questions would you ask the creator of the mural if you got a chance to ask him a question? What does this mural inspire you to find out more about? Could you do research on something that's revealed here that might spark an interest? And this may be a strategy again that you can lead into a larger unit. So you can use this particular assignment with other murals, series of paintings. You can even do this with poetry, short stories, articles, or scholarly articles. What happens here is that they you might find that they're super interested in this type of activity where they want to enter into this like analysis of pictures or murals in deeper ways, especially those who are lean more toward the creative, but those who are not creative can still do this. So remember that it's, find 10 objects, narrow it down to three, and then write on one. So this is another really quick assignment that I give almost at the beginning of any reading that we do, any especially literature reading. Um, so this is the author background poster. So what we do is they choose an author or I give them the author. I put them in groups of 4 or 5, and each member selects a subtopic. The author's early life, adult life, time period, and literary career, and impact or influences. And so what they do is I give them 20 minutes of quiet time to research. They do have Chromebooks, so I do have that benefit. 20 minutes of quiet research. They're supposed to read 3 articles and pull 10 direct quotes from the articles. About 3 quotes per article. I ask them to spend that 20 minutes of quiet. They have 10 quotes to choose from. Out of those 10 quotes, they take about 3 to 5 of them, however much space they have, and put them on their poster. And this is just this is a blank piece of paper. What's nice about this is we can do it in one class period. They get a little bit of background about the author without me having to lecture to them. And then at the end, they get to teach each other their information. So they at least have a little bit of introduction to the author before we begin. So again, you can use this repeatedly. It's nice for them to know how to do an assignment and not have continual like having to begin a brand new, creative, interesting, unique assignment that we have to create, and they might not have as much, control over. So this is something they can even do at home if they're interested in a person. Of course, they're not going to make a poster, but they still have the techniques to be able to do some quick research. And so let's get into the longer process of the research process. So there's a few steps at the beginning of this process that I'm going to go through, and mainly concepts here. So that it's what I call it is the 10 to 1 approach. So this is at the bottom, it says we're trying to avoid the 1 to 1 approach. And the 1 to 1 approach is read one sentence, write one sentence. What we're looking for is reading 10 sentences and using that 10 sentence information to write one sentence, and on and on. So the very first process that they go through is to get a baseline understanding. And I'm going to expand upon this in just a few minutes. But the very first step is to just sit back and watch some videos or read or skim some articles about the topic. So I asked them to write 10 or read or watch 10 videos. Now, we don't always have enough time to do this. And if they can get 3 in class, and then I tell them to, watch or read a few more at home, then, I just trust that. That should give them at least something to begin with, a few videos. Then what we seek to do is find 10 times the amount of content they need before writing. They read 10 articles to write one paper. They read 10 paragraphs to write one paragraph. They read 10 sentences to write one sentence. That's the concept here. So as you can see, there's a PDF worksheet. A lot of this information is directly from the packet. I've given you a little bit more of the structure of what this looks like on a day-to-day basis. You can use it, adapt it, however you'd like. So before we jump too deeply into the research process, I just wanted to give you the topics that I have found are the most interesting so that you can be thinking about how, whenever we enter into that process, that if you were going to choose one of these to teach, then you have that in mind as we're talking. So all of these that I'm sharing with you, I have done and I have found are successful with students. So the very first one is to prove that a conspiracy theory is true. So they can pick any conspiracy theory. Now, even though I give them their options, I always approve their topics. So if they have something extremely inappropriate for school, I try to lean them a different direction. So, as always, we kind of go back and forth. I have these conversations with them, and then we come to an agreement before they begin. So Marilyn Monroe, 9/11, moon landing, whatever. So it's really fun for them to get up in front of class and go, okay, I'm going to prove to you that the moon landing was fake. So we just enter in, enjoy it. It's a little bit fun. People laugh. Sometimes it's kind of silly. Some of them, the ones that they come up with. I had a student one time prove that a hot dog is a sandwich, these types of things. So I can be a little flexible depending on the time period, the time that we have to work on it, who my students are, and making sure that they're keeping it academic. So the next one is to present 2 sides of one controversial topic. So the key with this is you have a good relationship with the students, they respect each other, but the goal is not to prove that your controversial topic is true, but to present both sides unbiasedly. This actually allows them to learn that critical thinking skill, focus on rhetoric, hold back some of those persuasive techniques that they want to use, and just present information unbiasedly. It can be very interesting because they have a hard time holding back their opinion. And I say you can't give your opinion, and that's the whole point. So this one ends up being really interesting, especially to the upper grades. Genocides across history and nations. I choose not to let them do Holocaust because it's too big of a topic, and they've just done so much research on it already. So many genocides that have been forgotten or not valued. The Cambodian, Rwandan. Uh, there's all kinds of them. The Lost Boys of Sudan. I have a list of them, and the genocides research paper is the one that I have given you the PDF for. You could do research explorations, just presenting their ideal career, or two different options for a career where they're wrestling with the possibilities. You can have them teach their peers a lesson, like formalized research on how to beat a video game or the physics of a kickflip. If you want to make it a little bit more academic, I'd say they have to have resources for that. And then lastly, I've asked them to learn something to teach it, learn something they've been interested in but didn't know much about, and then you are going to learn it so that you can teach it to us. So back to the process. The very first step is baseline understanding. So this is where all the instructions are here and they are also on the PDF. But these two can be flipped depending on if the students do know something about their topic or don't know something about their topic. So if they know something about their topic, I would start with part one, which is set the timer for 20 minutes, give them a piece of paper, and ask them just to write everything they know about the topic, what they're interested in, why they think it's interesting, what impact does this topic make, what would happen in their life if they learned more about it, like would it improve something, would it benefit somebody or something, anything like that. Part two, again, if they didn't know or if they didn't know anything about the topic at all, I would start with part two, which is information gathering. That is, for 20-minute sessions, they shouldn't take notes, but watch videos and skim through articles. Previously, I said 10. 3 is probably more likely that they will do. They're not supposed to take notes. They're just supposed to read and take in some of the content. Now, one of the things I do tell them is if they find a good article, then go ahead and keep that to the side in a Google Doc. Step two is to narrow down their topic. So maybe initially they were just thinking about a couple possibilities of research or a very, very broad topic. So what we're doing now is narrowing down the exact research question they're going to ask. So you may be able to help them with this or give them ideas on how to narrow this down. But these are the questions that are going to go into the Google search bar. How should people choose careers based on passion versus money? Or should people choose those careers? How does propaganda influence people during a genocide or this specific genocide? What role do other countries play in stopping these genocides? Can we learn from these past events today? And how would history look different from another group's perspective? So these are different possible questions. And again, they're a little bit generic because I was trying to cover a few of the topics that I had offered you. But I think you guys, that could be an entire lesson, just narrowing down your research topic into a very specific research question. Use these questions to guide your research and narrow down the topic. So the next step is to make sure that you find and use credible sources. So I'm not going to go too far into this. There are some PDFs you can use for this purpose, but you could teach the CRAP test, the current relevant author accuracy and purpose. You can teach them how to do an annotated bibliography. I do that with my upper grades, especially the seniors. And so I'm trying to encourage them to do academic level research and not just find Wikipedia or any and everything that's online. Do the research. They choose the article, they pull quotes, they throw the quotes into the worksheet or a Google Doc, and then they break down what the usefulness of these quotes, the article, or the information is as they go. ideally, they're going to be finding uh, similarities across the articles that they can group up so that not every paragraph, body paragraph, is going to be just one article, but that they get to combine some of the article content into its own body paragraph. That is the goal. That can be a very challenging thing to learn. But if they have a good process, we can grow into that. For the younger grades, I might allow them to have each body paragraph a different article article content. Ask them to write the first draft. They're reviewing the content, looking at what they've gathered, grouping the content or the quotes together, starting to write some of their body paragraphs. And then what we're asking them to do is write a thesis statement that can work for the paper. So I'm just going to read the first example. In order to survive, the people of Cambodia had no choice but to comply with the communist regime until they had an opportunity to escape. So in this thesis statement is specific enough but broad enough to be able to put the process of how they got into the genocide, how they were controlled, how they lived on a day-to-day basis, and possibly even some stories of escape. And so you can bring that together. Again, this can be an advanced thesis statement. I do have seniors at this moment, but the simpler, I would go simpler the younger I taught. Then the next is revise and edit your final draft. Just make sure that you have a clarity within your sentences, your structure, focusing on a conclusion. And I did want to stop and share with you some of the elements that I ask for in conclusions. And this is for all essays. Three main things that I ask them to do, which I call the journey of connection or journey to connection. And that's where they make judgments about why this topic might have mattered or impacted the people of the time that it was the event, or whatever topic we're talking about is how it started, why the people of the time needed this or was affected by this topic. And then how that event or decision affected everything after that, and then why it affects us now today. So these are the three main things that I ask students to really work through in that conclusion, and it helps them to have a better conclusion than, tell them what you're going to say, tell them, and then tell them what you said. Okay, so having that more impact related conclusion really helps them to have more to say about it. And then the formatting. Maybe your school has to teach MLA, but I prefer to teach ABA because if they're going to go to college, that's primarily this formatting they're going to use. So I want you, as you review this, and if you want to go back through a few of the slides, really think about how these strategies might work for your classroom, what you might adapt to your population, which might you use exactly the way I presented it versus change it. And then consider ways that you can use this as a presentation, a short one-page paper, a longer research paper with multiple elements, or just simply building depth through teaching annotated bibliographies. Sometimes I have them do a very short piece just so that I can teach them how to do an annotated bibliography or focus on credibility. And then lastly, just don't forget to download the PDF and please use it for your purposes. Change it if you'd like. I really hope that you all learn something that you can use right away or you can build into your curriculum next year. And I would love to hear any feedback that you get if you really like an activity. or if that you found success in it, or even that you found some challenges, and maybe we can brainstorm how to overcome those challenges. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you soon.